A bird drops stones into the sea, meaning to fill it in. For 2,000 years, the phrase Jingwei pills the sea has been our byword for hopeless folly. But the geologists keep a different ledger. The Yellow River unloads its sediment into the Bohai, hundreds of millions of tons, every single year. In the year of high water, the land at the river mouth can grow tens of square kilometers out into the sea. Throwing things into the sea until the sea is gone, it is happening right now. What if utility is only an illusion made by how briefly we live? What if we think that bird cannot win only because no one has ever lived long enough to see her win? The bird comes from an old book, the classic of mountains and seas, in the section on the northern mountains. The Flame Emperor had a youngest daughter, a girl called Nuwa. In the old stories, the Flame Emperor governed the sun, and from childhood the girl had one wish: to go and look at the place where the sun comes up. That place was the East Sea. That year, she went. The waves were low. She walked down the sand and into the water, past her ankles, past her knees. And then the bottom simply was not there. The sea took her without a sound. No struggle for anyone to see. No cry for anyone to hear, and no body ever returned. Her people searched the shore for a month and found nothing. The water lay flat, as if nothing had happened at all. When the girl opened her eyes again, she was on a mountain. They call it Mount Faju, 1,000 li to the west, its slopes covered in wild mulberry. She tried to raise a hand. What lifted was a wing. The stream below showed her a bird, shaped like a crow, patterned on the head, white in the beak, red in the feet. The body weighed almost nothing. One gust of wind could carry her into the sky. She opened her mouth to call her own name, and what came out belonged to a stranger. The sound that came was Jingwei twice over. She called it again and again, the same 2 notes every time. The sea had taken her body. It had taken her name as well. People below heard the bird calling all day long, as if calling out to someone, and so the name they gave her was Jingwei. It was taken from the sound itself. She stood on the summit for 3 days and 3 nights. On the 3rd day, she took a pebble in her beak and flew east. From the mountain to the East Sea is 1,000 li. One trip takes several days. Flying by day, and when the light goes, resting in whatever strange tree she finds. Out over the water, she knew it. This was the sea that had taken her. She let the pebble go. It went into the water without a sound. The wind and the waves swallowed that small noise whole. Not one ripple on the surface changed. She circled once, turned west, and went back for the second. From that day on, she flew the trip daily, a pebble or a twig, whatever a beak can carry. 1 a day, 300 and more a year. All of them together would not cover a patch of seabed the size of a sleeping mat. The sea did not mock her. She was far too small for that. The sea never noticed she was there at all. But the next day she came back. The wind blew her off course. The waves soaked her wings. She spent nights on the rocks, drying out, and flew again at first light. A little south of the mouth of the great river stood a fishing village, facing the very water she was filling. A boy in that village saw the same bird every day, a patterned head and a white beak, coming in from the west, dropping something onto the sea, and turning back west again. The boy asked his grandfather what bird it was. The old man squinted at the sky.
That bird? She was already doing that when I was a boy.
In time, the boy became a grandfather himself and gave his own grandson the same answer. The world changed hands more than once. The tribes of the Flame Emperor scattered. New kings rose and fell. Two things did not change: that sea and that bird. The first sign of it came from the mooring posts. The village drove them in at the edge of the water. One year, the old men found the posts standing clear of the water and had to drive new ones further out toward the sea. Decades later, the new posts stood dry as well. The old men muttered,
Strange, the sea is backing away.
So the village pulled down its houses and followed the water, 3 times over, across several generations. The new ground was soft underfoot, black and greasy, and seed thrown on it came up fast. People took it for a gift from heaven. As for the reason behind it, the bird understood it better than they did. That summer the rain came hard. She could not fly far. On a cliff of Mount Fazhu, she waited out the storm, watching the river down below. The river is called the Jiang. It rises on that same mountain. She crossed it every day and never once stopped to look at it. Her eyes were only ever on the East Sea. Most days the Jiang runs thin and shallow. Now it had swollen into a yellow dragon. Muddy water carrying silt, carrying sand, carrying whole uprooted trees and boulders the size of a millstone, roaring east. She watched a rock she could never have lifted go tumbling away downstream and vanish in a blink. And then she remembered what she had been flying over all along. Every day she flew east, crossing the Jiang on her way, across the great river it runs into, and across the mouth where that river meets the sea. In flood season, the water at the river mouth turns yellow. It spreads for several leagues like a ladle of muddy broth poured onto blue cloth. She had always taken that for dirty water. Now she understood. It was not dirty water, it was the mountain. Mountains broken apart by rain, turned into silt, being carried into the sea by the river. Trip after trip, day and night. What the river moves in 1 year would take her 10,000. She was not filling the sea alone. Every river on earth was doing what she was doing, and had been doing it for longer than anyone can count. Every rainfall takes the mountains apart for her. Every river carries the earth for her. The rain stopped. She took up a pebble, and this time she did not fly east. She flew to the bank of the Jiang and dropped the stone into the water. It sank, the surface turned once, and the river took it away. After that, people below still saw her every day, carrying wood and stone eastward from the western hills, though no one could say any more where she was going. Generations later, the fishing village moved for the 4th time. Of the ground where the new village stood, the old people had a saying. Under this land there was once an inlet, where a daughter of the Flame Emperor drowned. Later, a man who had walked the mountains and rivers of the whole world came at last to Mount Fazhu to sell and put the bird into a book. What she looked like, where she came from, and how she carried wood and stone to fill the East Sea. Having written all that, he added one last line. That line is not about the bird, it is about the river below the mountain. That is the story. Now look again at a few of the details inside it. First, the book says, the Jiang, it says, rises here and flows east into the great river. A single line of hydrology at the end of a tale about a bird. Why should a story about a bird need the course of a river attached to it? But the wood and stone she carried from the western hills, and the silt that the Jiang itself swept away, came off the same mountain, traveled the same road, and arrived at the same sea. In this passage, the bird is not the only one filling the sea. Second, the schedule of the work. Geology has a term for it, deep time. It does not measure by a human lifespan, but reads the changing of the earth in units of a million years. On that scale, rivers moving mountains and silt building new land at a river mouth is simply the normal state of things. And the ledger of the Yellow River from the opening of this film is the proof that the work is underway. Today, the new land at the mouth of the Yellow River still reaches further into the sea, year after year. Since this project began, it has not stopped for a single day. The sea has changed its shape across an enormous stretch of time. If Jingwei herself could see this coast today, would she feel some small comfort? Subscribe to Young D Codes for more untold legends.